Back in 2012, I used to work at a job selling women's shoes. It was a sales commission job, and I remember working, and sometimes there'd be either the managers or some of the employees, like the coworkers that I would have, that ask me, they'd say, "What's wrong with you? Why do you have so much energy?" And there was this level of me feeling like there was something wrong with me. I felt like there was, maybe I was broken or I shouldn't be the way that I was, and in general, I had a lot of energy. And I had energy to a place to where I was very ungrounded. I was at a place to where when I would go into work every day, I would drink 4 shots of espresso. And those 4 shots would make me very calm. Literally, I could put my hand like this after 4 shots and be super calm. But without it, I was very hyper. So it had the opposite effect on me. And I eventually went to a doctor, and a doctor told me, "Oh, you have ADHD." And they gave me this prescription for ADHD, which is called Adderall. It's similar to like Ritalin or all these other prescriptions. And basically what that would do is that would really zone me in and help me to focus while I was at work and help me to be more normal, when really what it is it's like legal methamphetamine, not even kidding. And I lived where I had very harsh side effects of that. The side effects of taking Adderall are you don't eat very much, you don't sleep very much. So I would take it during the day, I'd make a whole bunch of money, I'd go home at night, and of course, the side effects of not eating, not being able to eat and sleep, what I would do to balance that out is I would smoke cannabis. That was my way of being able to eat, sleep, and like mitigate the side effects. But that had me feeling like I needed things outside of myself in order just to get by. And there was a level of shame also that came with having ADHD, where I believed that there's something broken about me. And what made the switch for me is what I want to share with you in this video. This video, I think, will help change the way you see yourself, understanding that a lot of times the way we believe and think about ourselves is on autopilot. When we challenge it, that's when everything begins to change. And it's so powerful once we get to understand how flexible reality becomes based on our own sense of internalization of who we think we are and how we can change it like that by making the choice. Welcome back to another video. My name's Aaron, and I help people expand their consciousness. Now on this video, I want to share with you the biggest trigger that went from me being version of Aaron that has ADHD, that wasn't able to focus, that was very dependent on substances and ways of just getting by, to me being much more grounded and also going after my purpose, being able to channel the energy that used to be sporadic, being able to channel that, not needing to do anything other than meditation. I learned meditation, it changed everything, but I want to share with you what that actual switch was, because there's an identity piece here that changes everything. And recently I was actually at the gym and I met somebody that came up to me and said, and he recognized me from the videos, and he was like, I just want to say thank you because I used to be on Adderall, and through watching one of your videos from back in the day, I saw what you were able to do and I did the same thing, and I've been off Adderall now for months. And I thought that was really cool, and he said that really changed his life, that whole idea. And I was like, I haven't talked about that in a long time on the channel. So I kind of went back inside myself and I started realizing what was the major trigger point that really changed everything. And it's understanding this one idea. This reality that we live in, it's going to sound kind of esoteric. The reality that we live in is a form of virtual reality, meaning we are eternal spiritual beings believing and dreaming that this is who we are as these physical avatar selves. Now what happens is through certain past experiences, we believe that things that we are told by other people have to be true. We have this certain sense of identification that then remains on autopilot until we become aware of it. Prior to that, we just think that reality is fixed and reality is the way it is. Now, the magic is understanding that every moment is a new moment. Every moment's a new moment. We are constantly defining ourselves in the present moment of who we are, and these things that have these heavy definitions and these heavy labels are simply things that we've been tied to based out of familiarity, of justification. And we can change it like that by making a new choice about who we are and dropping our old sense of self. Now, just to give you a little bit of a barometer to this as well, just my story if you haven't heard it as far as the ADHD thing goes. back from 7 years old to 15 years old for me, I had the ex-stepmom in my life, where my brother and I had no freedom whatsoever. We weren't allowed to have friends. We had to earn going to school activities. We weren't allowed to watch TV. Like we were normally just working outside all day. So there was a level of control that was in our lives where we weren't able to really be ourselves. It wasn't until my junior year of high school that I was actually allowed to have friends and I was actually allowed to do normal things. So sophomore year was extremely awkward. Junior year, that's when I started coming out of my shell. So there was like all this pent up energy from 7 to 15 years old of being in a little box. All of a sudden I'm able to be myself. I'm able to like have friends. I'm able to go to school activities and not get them taken away from me. And what happened is I started coming out of my shell, and then at 18 years old, I started working at Nordstrom's in women's shoes. It was a sales commission job, very good job for, especially being 18 years old. And I would walk around, I had all this energy, I would like mess with customers sometimes, I would joke around a lot, and it was just very ungrounded energy. And the reason I say that is because in high school, you could have looked at me and I didn't actually look like I had ADHD at all. I was in a little fear box. We're not allowed to be myself. Then what happens is my dad divorces my ex-stepmom finally. I have all this freedom, and that's when my personality started coming out. And it was almost this ungrounded sense of self where I was just joking around all the time, especially at that job that I had at Nordstrom's. And that's when people started saying things to me. They'd be like, "What's wrong with you? Why do you have so much energy?" I remember one time, this is before I even got on Adderall or anything. There was this one assistant manager that I had at Nordstrom's in women's shoes, and she was telling other managers, she had a meeting. I have a friend of mine that was also like a department manager. She was hanging out at lunch with them, and she said that she was convinced I was on coke. And I'm thinking to myself, what? Like, I've never done that in my life. Why would somebody be spreading rumors like this? And what I then did is I told her, it actually worked out in my favor. I took her out to lunch one day and I told her, I said, "Hey, I heard about what you said to all these other people. Unless you go to each individual person and you tell them that it's not true, that you were just like, just saying that and you were gossiping, unless you go tell them that, then I'll go up to HR unless you tell them that." And that's pretty much what she did, because I was like, why do I have to explain myself to people? But literally, not only do I feel like a sense of shame or there's something wrong with me. I mean, it's even called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I felt like there's something wrong. But I got people that think I'm on drugs when I'm not on drugs. So there was this level of like shame, this level of like something's broken with me. And that actually ended up working in my favor though, because then that manager was afraid of me being in the department she was in. So she helped me get transferred to a better shoe department selling salon shoes, which are more expensive shoes. So, which means you make more money in commission. So it actually worked out better, but it was interesting. Like, that's the kind of stuff I dealt with. Like my energy was so hyper that's how people thought of me. But then what happened is in 2012, I was feeling a lot of resistance. I was also like feeling a lot of the pain of my past. And I think that's why I was like resorting to maybe substances, or maybe that's why I had so much energy. I felt a lot of anxiety, just having this whole new world where I could do anything. But then what I did is I started looking online at different research, different things that showed like research on things that didn't have such harsh side effects. Because Adderall, you couldn't eat very much, you couldn't sleep very much. I would take that during the day. Then at nighttime, I would go home and I would smoke cannabis. And I was just always feeling like I was like pulling back on these different things in order to get by. And I felt like, kind of stuck. So I go online and I look up and find research on meditation, and I start meditating. It basically says that meditation has 0 negative side effects. Observing your thoughts can help you regulate your dopamine levels, because when you're taking Adderall, it releases a crap load of dopamine, which then means you crash later on. But basically what happened is I then start meditating. The first 2 or 3 days, nothing really happened. The third day, I start observing my thoughts rather than reacting to my thoughts. Before that, I would start thinking negative thoughts. I'd start freaking out because I watched the movie The Secret not that long before that. And I was like, oh, my thoughts create my reality. If I think negative thoughts, it's going to something bad's going to happen. And then what happened is I would think more negative thoughts, and it became this wheel. But then I was like, wait, what if I read somewhere, staring at a candle flame would when your eyes don't wander, your mind doesn't wander. So what I would do is I stare at a candle flame and I would observe my own thoughts. I wouldn't try to control them. I'd let them come in, I'd let them go out. Now, this is like the third or fourth day of learning meditation that I started doing this, and within a week, my whole entire life started to transform. My vibrational set point on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 feeling horrible, 10 feeling amazing, I was at a consistent, I'd say about a 4. I would feel not that great at all, but if I smoked cannabis or I did Adderall or whatever, I would go up to about a 5 or a 6, and then I crashed back down to a 4. As I started meditating, observing my thoughts, and being more in my body, I went to a solid 7 or 8 out of 10, and I started to feel high all the time. I didn't understand it. I thought that it was too good to be true. Maybe this feeling would go away. But as I started observing my thoughts and also realizing that at a certain point in my past, a doctor told me, you have ADHD. And then I bought into it. I believed it. And then I thought, and I prescribed to the belief system, literally prescribed to the belief system that I had to take Adderall in order to get by. That was the way to treat it. I started to question these things about myself. I started to question, do I even have this thing? And as I was meditating and observing my thoughts, I was disengaging from the old identity, and I started to reframe it. I started to give it a new meaning. So for me, that meant I just have a shit ton of energy. So I'm gonna go ground myself in grass. That's what I would do. I'd go ground myself in grass, walk barefoot, and then I let the excess energy kind of flow through. I started meditating, and I literally went from this identity of ADHD, energy all over the place, feeling the pain of my past, feeling stuck, feeling kind of like a victim in many ways, because even though the ex-stepmom was out of my life, I had a manager that was the same exact archetype of my ex-stepmom, so there was always a woman in my life to reflect that kind of energy back. I learned meditation, and then guess what? I started wiring in a new identity. I then became a Zen version of myself. At that time, what happened is I went vegan immediately. I started losing a lot of weight. So people at my work and even family members and friends thought I was on drugs when I wasn't. I actually got off Adderall and cannabis completely. And then everyone thought I was on drugs because I lost so much weight. And at the same time of losing all that weight, what happened is I started to meditate. And I started to literally take on this identity of like a meditative person. It shifted almost like this. Literally within weeks, got rid of Adderall, got rid of smoking cannabis. And I didn't feel like I needed it. I just felt like different. And it was a shift in identity, and it was a reframing of the old disorder. And it was a releasing of the shame that there was something even wrong with you. What if you thinking you have ADHD is actually your superpower? What if you could reframe it and see how this is going to allow you to channel an immense amount of energy into something that's going to create a great success in your life and happiness? Or channeled creative ability, or psychic, whatever. It's about using what has happened in the identity in a positive way by reframing what it means. I think you can use this for anything. Now, at the same time, I have to say, because it's true, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not telling you if you're on some medication or something else like to get off of it. But this is what I did. That's what I did. I questioned what I was told. And I changed my sense of identity, and that changed everything. And I used this same identity shift, by the way. I've used this same exact identity shift to go from a 9-to-5 job goer with thoughts, emotions, and actions equal to that reality to a full-time YouTuber. I even used it to go from a lukewarm, average sales employee to a top sales employee. Because I realized that my self-image is that I'm an average employee. So at the end of the day, or the beginning of the day, the next day at work, every day, I'd go in and see the top salespeople from the day before, because it would show things like that. And I would then see that I was at the middle part of it consistently. I started to see myself as a top salesperson. I started being a top salesperson. I started greeting every customer. I started being very personable. I started looking people in their eye in a certain way. I'd think, what would the version of Aaron that's a top salesperson think, do, and feel like? And I became it. The same way with YouTube. What would this version of me do? Make videos consistently. I made videos starting February 2017. Every single day my life transformed because I was being that version of me. So what if there's a version of you right now that is a meditative or like present person that has reframed the frantic energy and grounded it into your body? What if you were able to work on breathing patterns? Like you just breathe. I was reading a book recently that said that breathing patterns affect like ADHD. So it's like, what if it's just like a traumatic breathing pattern that changed stuff? So the first step is knowing that there's other courses of action rather than just doing what the doctors tell you to do by giving you methamphetamine. It's like legal meth. I just got done watching a whole entire show called Breaking Bad, which is a very dark show, but it is an amazing show. But they're cooking meth on that show, and you see what happens. And literally, when I was doing that, I remember one time I was helping a customer with shoes, and my hand was twitching. I wasn't taking more than I was supposed to, but it just has a weird effect on the body. But I was focused and a lot of dopamine flowing through. So the main part of this video is knowing you can shift right now by making the choice about who you are and disengaging from the old sense of self, identity, and what people have told about you or said about you. And you can start making and reframing new meanings and seeing yourself in a new way. And by taking on these new habits, like maybe meditation or yoga or breath work or whatever, you'll start to shift your sense of self. And when you shift your sense of self, your whole entire life begins to change. Now, there is a meditation that I think can help with this. It's on raising your dominant vibration. When I talk about going from a 3 or 4 out of 10 to a 7 or 8 out of 10, I made a meditation that we all originally did together live that is so powerful. And the title is the most powerful meditation for raising your dominant vibration permanently. It's in the top of the description box. Check that below, commit to it for 21 days, watch what happens, read the comments to see what's possible. And that's another way of raising your vibe consistently so that you don't have to, feel stuck with those things. So that helps you shift your identity easier. Anyways, like this video if you like this video, or if you want me to talk more about like different things like ADHD or different parts of that story, let me know, comment below. Other than that, as always, I'll talk to you on the next video. Peace, much love, and namaste.